All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Morning for us here in the US. It's great to have you here again. Happy you could make it. It seems like we're starting with a small group. I know Maximus is not going to be able to join us. He's not feeling well. We hope that everything is okay. As you can see, COVID is not done and it just keeps on going and expanding. It's all over the world. It's crazy. So because of that, I thought maybe we should start with a healing prayer for everyone. So I'm going to share my screen and then we'll get started. Michelle, is there sound?
Thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing, and my succor in all this world, and the world to come. Thou verily art the all bountiful, are the all-knowing.
Let's do a quick review of what we did last 2 weeks. And then we'll get into the topics for today. And it seems like we're a small group. I hope everybody else is okay. Uh, if you remember, we started with the spiritual aspects of our program 2 weeks ago, with the fact that we are born rich. Our financial affairs is not just about money, but it encompasses our knowledge, expertise, time, money, talents, and then even into physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual powers. We looked at our human treasures, our characteristics that we're all born with. And everyone is born, we're born like a rough diamond in a rock. We polish ourselves. So these character traits can be manifested through the light of God that can shine through us. And every one of these character traits plays a role, not only in our finances, personal finances, and family finances, but in all affairs of our life, in our relationship, in our work, in how we interact with everyone. So we looked at some of those. We discussed which ones we have that are strong and which ones we need to work on to make them stronger. Hopefully, everyone picked one character trait that they like to make it really strong and put it in that yellow box in there. So we last week we started with patience and moderation. Those were the two character traits that we looked at. Last week we began to learn how to set small goals for our personal life and then for our family, because it's very important to actually have our goals written down. Often we forget that we set a goal, when did we set it, how we were going to achieve it, what's our plan of action, how long is it going to take us, what sacrifices are we willing to make, and most importantly, why do we want to achieve that goal? And whether it's material goal, or spiritual goal, educational goal, family goal, it really doesn't matter. Writing things on somewhere, it's so important. And as you are seeing, this is one of the challenges that majority of adults have. We are afraid of writing things down sometimes, especially when it comes to how much money we spend. How do we spend our money? Where do we spend it? Which I'll get into in a minute. Then hopefully everyone had a chance to talk to their family, to set family goals. And this is actually two parts. So not only our family members need to understand each other's goals and support it, but then also family goals are important too. And it's not just family, it could be our partnership. If you have a business with someone else, if we, not if, but we all live in communities, in neighborhoods. And as we will discuss today, setting community goals is very important to what is it that we're trying to achieve? How are we trying to improve our neighborhoods? We looked at this table that we created that looks at investing in our future. We are always, every stage of life, we are thinking about the next stage. In the mother's womb is preparation for this world. In the childhood is preparation for adulthood. Adulthood is preparation for our retirement age. And then ultimately, our financial affairs doesn't end on this on life on earth. It continues even for those that believe that we have a soul and it continues to survive. What we leave behind, the legacy that we leave behind, makes a difference in how we progress through the worlds of God. And this is how we leave a legacy. What is it that we want to do? We want to leave an education institution behind. We want to be remembered with what we did. Then we looked at creating a moderation in our life, creating a shopping list. Again, we go to store and we forgot what we wanted to buy, or we buy things that we don't necessarily need. And then creating a time management. This is something that a lot of us, I know I have sometimes challenges with time management. I tend to concentrate too much on work, even though that my work is volunteer work. Most of the time that I spend on Mind Treasures is volunteer. I don't get paid for it. But still, I need to think about my spiritual development, family time, managing my finances. That's one item that a lot of people have challenged with, like, we have to set some time to manage our finances. We'll continue to talk about that today. Definitely getting enough sleep. Some people cut back on their sleep to get to the other ones. So this is where, oh, and then we looked at, we began to uh, create the annual budget and keep track of our finances. So this is where we ended up. Thank you so much for everyone who has done your assignments. I know the assignments are not difficult, but getting into the habit of getting into the assignments, sometimes it takes some time. Michelle, would you like to add anything? Did I forget anything about what we discussed in the last 2 weeks?
No, that's it.
That's it. You're good. Okay. All right. So since we're a small group, I'm going to open it up. If anybody has any question from the last 2 weeks of what we did, please either put it in the chat or open your microphone. Again, we're a small group today. There's only 11 of us here. Are there any questions about anything that we've done in the past 2 weeks? I know it's early morning here and late hour for Michelle, but everybody else is in the middle.
Yeah, we're here. Hi, everyone.
Afro, go ahead.
Yeah, so like, I think if I'm not taking you back, so I went to the first assignment, the initial goals, and I was like I really, like, you see the question, so like, as we refer, do we need to respond like as we think, or to follow the guide? I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, Alex, we can't hear you. No sound.
No sound.
Okay, how about now? Is it?
Okay.
Okay. That's okay.
All right, sorry. Yes. So the purpose of this initial goal before the class was to think about, what do you think? I mean, write down your responses before learning everything. So now that we have gone forward, you can just do it based on what you have learned.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do it either way. So either way works. Right now, you can just put your responses in there as we are learning.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. I get you.
Anybody else? Any other questions before we move on? Alex, go ahead. Alex Norway, unmute yourself and go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yes. Could you help us when we, where does abundance come into this, and energy to do our, achieve our goals? Did you have any thoughts in that respect? When one's energy and one's goals are high and one's aspirations, but realizing that, hey, there's no gas in the tank, you might say. Thank you.
That's an interesting question. Michelle, any thought? Nobody has ever asked that question. Was it clear, Michelle? Did you understand the question?
Don't really understand his questions.
So the question, from what I understand, is that we set goals. So let me go back to the goals page. So let's say we want to buy not an iPhone. Let's say if you want to finish college, if you want to get a college degree. I think Alex's question is that what if we don't have enough energy? Where do we get that energy from? What do we do? I think that was your question. Is that right, Alex?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So for examples, what I mean, which I have personally go through, I'm not talking about like past 3 years. Actually, I'm having my master program while I'm working. So that was my short-term goal at that moment, want to complete my master. Definitely, while you're taking your master, when you're taking your master, at the same time we are working, we tend to like want to give up very easily when we have a lot of assignment and it clash with the working schedule and so on. So here come the hidden treasure that you are having. Are you having enough patience to make sure your goal is achieving the determinations that you are having, and how strong your desire in order to get the master? So that's why it's mostly is self-motivated. You have to always motivate yourself with your, I mean, so that's why it's very important that actually you can list down all the goal, and every time you have to review back your goal and to see your timeline, whether you are in the timeline. And so that's why I believe most of the time the human treasure will come in the part, the determination, the patience, yeah, the strong belief that you have. Yes, this is how I overcome for to getting my master during when I was working. Yeah. So this is one of the example that I can share. It's not really a material thing, but however, it's in order to achieve personal, I mean, the mentality goal and so on. Yes.
I think that was a good one. Yeah, that is, and that's why we need to look at our, when we do the moderation and when we do the time management sheet, this can apply, as we were saying, it can apply to our time, even to our energy, and just prioritizing. I think it's all about prioritizing. There are times that we need to spend more time on the family, like when we have small children, they require more time. When we are working on school, obviously school takes priority. It's the same thing in our finances, because we need to write it down. Sometimes, Alex, maybe you even need to write down, where do I focus my energy? Carla says, it helps me by remembering why did I get started on the first place with this financial goal? Also thinking about the benefits. I think that's a very important point too. Then that's why when we go to our patients, there are all these different elements. It's not that, oh, I just want to buy an iPhone, and it's like, okay, whenever I buy it. But it's like, how long is it going to take me? What is my plan? What am I willing to sacrifice? And what? And often we need to go back and look at our resources. So that's what we were saying, is that our resources is not just money, but it's energy, it's our talents, it's everything. So we need to always be looking at, and you can, when you're setting your personal goals, you can expand this to consider all the different resources that you need. So that was a great question. Thank you, Alex. Right?
Very good. Thank you so much.
Anybody else, or should we move on? I think let's move on, and then we'll come back. So today we're going to continue. I'm going to go back to the annual budget. I saw that a lot of the participants did start. Was there any question? Because this can get, I mean, when I look at this, I get overwhelmed. It's like there's a lot of columns, a lot of numbers, a lot of colors. Did anybody have any challenge with starting their budget? And this is one, that's going to take some time. Anybody has any question? So I'm just going to review this. So what we started with was, we started with listing our active income. This is, again, our job when we work. And anything that you put into, so I'm going to remove this so you can see how it works. I'm sorry, I should have done this. I'll just do this here. So in this sheet, when I put in the number into the yellow box, it automatically fills in the entire row. So for every month, it says that I am thinking that my income is going to be $500. I'll just use dollars as an example. That doesn't mean that every month I'm going to get 500. If I have any passive income from investments, so let's say, I think we put in like $300. And then I list out my expenses for monthly into the yellow box, and it fills it in. Now, here comes the hard part. So today is 2nd of August. So now we need to go back and look at the entire month of July. It's like, how much money did I actually bring in? So the first column for every month, that's the budget. That's how much we think we're going to spend. And then this one, the actual, or the A, is how much we actually brought in and spent. So I'm just going to change it. So for month of July, now that it's ended, I actually ended up making a little bit more money. So I have 600. My investment did also good. It was everything good. Our home rents loan, it's usually fixed. But other things changes. So I'm going to delete these. So let's say I spent $40. My utilities was 40. Supermarket. It was summertime. It was hot. I ate a lot of ice cream, so I went a little bit overboard. So I spent more money. So you see that how it works. But now the difficult is for everyone to begin writing these down. So hopefully throughout the month of July, you have kept track of your expenses, and now you can put it in here. Any question on the budget sheet? And this is only one example. I mean, you don't have to use this sheet. You can do it for this class so we can help you. But then there are apps. I know one of the participants asked me if there was a particular app. I made some suggestions. So any question on the budget? Are we good? Everybody's quiet today. All right.
Yeah. Hi, Alex.
Go ahead.
Quick
Go
question.
ahead. Sure.
If I've been having another budget that I'm using, should I also fill this one?
It's up to you. It's totally up to you. If you're already doing something else and you're comfortable with it, you don't have to do this.
Okay.
We will accept it that you have done. But the other assignments, remember, you got to do all the other assignments in the sheet. Okay. All right. So today we're going to the first topic that we're going to talk about is our assets and liabilities. I'm going to the question in, I'm going to put in the chat, what are assets and liabilities? What are your thoughts? What are assets and liabilities? What do you think is considered as an asset and what is considered as a debt or liability? And you can put it in the chat, please. And we'll share some. So the way this sheet works is that we begin by assets that we have that generate passive income. So here are a few examples. In treasury bill, this is something that we have in US. It's like when you buy bonds, I can change this. So I'll put it government bonds. Maybe that's what it's called in other societies too. So let me see what Donna Marie says. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Okay, that's a good definition. Terry says asset is anything that puts money. Okay, same thing. That removes them. Wow. Isn't it amazing that we all have the same concept, whether we live on this side of the world or the other side of the world? Everybody, it's like finance is just like math is a universal language in here. So let's look at it. If we buy bonds from the government, that's called an investment. Usually our income generating assets, they have an interest rate. So if you borrow from the government, or actually when government borrows from us, they pay us a certain percentage of interest. So let's say 2%. So I'm going to put that in here. And then they'll provide us. So let's say if I purchase $8,000 worth of bonds from our local governments, and that's where I put the money in, then they're going to be at that 8%, 2%. Remember that 2% is for the whole year. It's not for per month. It's for whole year. So if I multiply those, I'm going to do that 8,000 times 2 divided by 12. So this is going to give me $13 and some change every month. See how this is filled in. Let's say asset is something that generates money now and in the future. Liability is something that can take. So yeah, everybody has the same idea. Let's say if you have a rental property, if we have, which we talked, I think last week about it. If we own a property that we can have tenants and we rent out to other people, it's the same thing. It has a value, let's say $50,000. Just put that number in there. We purchased the property for 50. And then let's say, hopefully this give us a better. And I'm going to make this a little smaller so it's easier to see. So it's giving me 13, and this one is going to give me 208 every month. So you see, these are our income generating assets. Then we have assets that don't generate income. So when we have money in the bank, depending on where we are in the world, here we call them checking accounts. So this is the one that we use for day-to-day transactions. Every time we go to supermarket, where we pay rent, we pay it out of that. And usually, at least here, we don't pay any interest. And then there are accounts where we keep a little bit larger amounts of money. So remember, the value of the asset, whether it's a income, whether it generates income or not, that's what it goes into this column. So this would be as of end of July, and this would be the starting point for all of us. So I would record that I own government bonds, I have a rental property. Then I look at my bank accounts and I see that I have $2,000 in my deposit account, doesn't get any interest. I have a savings account, $4,000, and this percent is nonsense for US because in US we get 0.01% in interest. This is what it is. It's very sad that we basically don't get any interest in here. And then I could be owning stocks. Then other types of assets, I could own a vehicle or a car. I might own some jewelry. So these are the things that we list under our assets. And just one point about assets, as you can see, not all assets generate income. Some assets actually lose their value. I'm not sure how it is in other parts of the world, but automobiles in US usually lose their value. So every year their value drops. So it doesn't generate any income directly. We might use it to get to work, to go to different places, but it doesn't generate direct income. Jewelry, usually the value goes up. So next month, when we come back at the end of August, we will come back and we can see that probably our investments should stay about the same. If you live in US, the rental properties or house or anything over the last year, the prices have gone up by 20% in 1 year. So it's been crazy in here. So this could have possibly gone up to 55,000. So now we do this also once a month. And then we have credit cards. What are some of the other liabilities that you see in your country? So in your societies, if you can put it in the chat, what are some of the liabilities that people incur? Like, do they take out personal loan? Do they take out business loans? What do you see in your society that's common? So this could be personal loan. Something here in the US that's very common is student loans. And we are hoping that, and these usually have, so the 23% on credit cards is very typical in US. This is, it is between 16 to 23%, sometimes even as high as like 38% or so. Student loans are usually about 5% interest. Sorry, personal loan could be anything. Let's put this one at 6, and then this one at student loans is usually about 5. So let's say I have personal loans of 10,000, and then student loans here in US are unfortunately going through the roof. They are crazy. Like if someone wants to become a doctor, their student loan by the time they are done, did I get enough? Too many zeros. Once they come out of school, they usually owe about $1 million in student loans, which is very crazy. So Samuel says, taking loans for car purchases. Okay, Carla says student loans, credit card, mortgages. Yep, exactly. So I'm gonna put 2 questions in the chat. So what do you think? Are all debts bad, or are there some good debts or some bad debts? Actually, let's not respond to that. We'll take that for the breakout session. We'll break out in 2 groups, and then we'll see. We can ask those questions, so we talk about those. Any question on the assets and liabilities here before we go to breakout?
What is a good and bad liability? Or
Let's talk about that in the breakout session. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Yeah, so we'll talk about that in the breakout sessions. And Michelle will do one of the breakouts and I'll do one of the breakouts. So let's make sure. Okay, Michelle, you're in group 1 and I am in here. All right, guys, so let's take like 15 minutes in our breakouts and then we'll come back. And I am going to.
Alex, you are muted your mic.
Oh, how did that happen? Okay, thank you. Michelle, go ahead. Would you like to present? Who's presenting from your group?
I will present for my group. Okay, I think in conclusion of my group that what are the good debt and bad debt. So most of it commented that good debt actually is the debt that we borrow that help to generate future income like student loan. We have more knowledge in our career, in our skill, and it will generate future income. Like business loan, it generate more income for us. So bad debt actually is a bad spending. The loan that we create for the spending, for the spending. So for my personally, I did share what is the good debt and bad debt to me. For me, even a debt actually is an obligation that we borrow the money and we are obliged to pay the debt on time. A good debt, that means you know the purpose of the debt that you own and you manage to able pay on time. However, bad debt will be the money that actually overspending, is already over whatever you can borrow that you are not able to pay back. So it becomes a bad debt. So this is my own definitions, but the group, most of the group definition will be that good debt is help to increase the future money, and bad debt actually is using for the spending that is not encouraged. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So we talked about the same thing, and good debt was things that does generate money for us, and I will make another example of it too. And then a bad debt was aforementioned. If you go to a concert and we borrow money for it, it's like that is a bad debt because going to concert, even though that it's nice, going to concert, maybe taking a travel, leisure travel for vacation or something like that. They are needed, not that they are not needed, because that's what keep our sanity. It keeps us, we need to take some entertainment, but those are not things that we need to borrow money for. And then good debt is like starting a business, building a house. And one thing that we talked about, let's say, take for example, if we borrow money to build a house that we're going to live in it, it does not generate money, but it's not a bad debt either, because either we have to pay rent or buy a house. And so not the good debt is not just toward generating income. There are some debt that doesn't generate income. Another example would be here in US, most of the cars are purchased on borrowed money, which is okay. When we buy a car, it doesn't necessarily directly generate money. We use it to go to work, to go to school, to go different places. And actually the asset drops its value. So a car that we buy here, over 5-6 years, the value really drops. But still, it's not a bad debt. It becomes bad debt because, again, here in the US, a lot of people feel like they have to have a new car every 2 years. Then that becomes a bad debt because we don't have to. The cars are good for at least 10 years. And that's something personally, we've always driven our cars for at least 10 years, but majority of Americans do change it on regular basis. So I think those were really good conversations that everybody had. And then the importance, the other question that we posed was that, do we need to look at our income and expenses and assets and liabilities? Because last series, somebody said, if we do that on a regular basis, wouldn't we become greedy or materialistic? And the response from our group was that no, we need to always know what we're doing, whether it's our time, it's our money, it's part of the plan. Like when we go to school, when we're going to university, we have a schedule. We start on the year and then we know what classes we have to take, how many we have completed, how many there's still needed to complete. So being aware of our finances, it's very important. And personally, I really love it because we have our finances still from 30 years ago since my wife and I have been married. I like to go back. I mean, I don't do it on a regular basis, but sometimes I go back and say, wow, 20 years ago, this was our income, this were our expenses, and now look at where we are, what's happening. I personally like to do that from time to time. All right, so I'm going to stop here and let's go back to, I want to share something with you guys. Let me share my screen again and then we'll see if there are any questions. No, this one. So we do have some categories in here as part of this. This is also in your worksheet. So we looked at, let's look at this. The way our income usually flows. And this is, let me make this a little smaller. So the way our income and expenses flow when we start our financial life, when we start to gain money. So we start with active income. Whether it's when we're a child, it's extra chores that we do employment, then we become a self-employed, and then we begin to accumulate assets. So we purchase real estate for our personal residence, automobiles, furniture. So we work and the money flows from the work that we do and it goes into our assets. Or sometimes when we work, money that we generate from active income goes to pay for the liabilities that we accumulate. Student loans, automobiles, mortgages, loan for the house, could be business loans or credit cards and so forth. And then also our active income supports our personal expenses, life necessities, travel, jewelry that we buy, clothes, interest that we pay on the loans, entertainment, travel, and so forth. Then as we grow older, our goal is to transition from active income to passive income. So these are some of the examples of passive income. Royalty on, let's say, if we create a song, if we write a book, if we publish a poem, those are some of the royalties that we can think about. And then these usually come from our intellectual property. So if we have an income generating asset, if we have music, song, books, they generate royalty for us. If we have a rental property, that also generates income for us. If we have savings, bonds, and stocks, they usually generate interest and dividend. And then if we have, now some of these assets, not only they generate income on a monthly basis, but their value also goes up. And that is what's known as capital gain. So stocks, we purchase it, so we're hoping that the value goes up. We purchase real estate, so we hope that the value goes up. We purchase gold, silver, and jewelry, diamond, and things like that. So we hope that the value goes up. So as you can see, this is where we start with active income, and then we should be planning on going to passive income. So I'm going to stop here and see if anybody has any question before we take a break. How are we doing here? Any questions about our assets, liabilities? How do they flow? You can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. Either way, that would work. Are we good? No questions or anything? So another element that we can briefly talk about is approval limits. So this is something that we really recommend everyone to implement in their personal, family, and if you're in a business relationship, to establish this, is to have a approved spending limit, especially if you are not comfortable, you don't feel like you can control yourself. Like for example, you go to a store, not for a supermarket and things, but let's say if you go to a clothing store and you always get excited about a new clothes or something like that, and you feel impulse to buy it. So it's always good to set a limit for yourself and saying that, all right, anything that's not necessary for me, again, not supermarket or anything, anything that's not necessary for me, I'm okay to make that decision by myself for up to $200. Then you can, and this is just an example, then you can say, all right, there are higher expenses that I should be doing this with my partner, whether it's my spouse, my business partner. If we're going to spend anything up to $5,000, then we should consult together, see whether it's needed, look at the pros and cons, but having that limit in there. And then anything that's over, let's say $10,000, maybe we should also talk to a professional. So for example, if I'm buying a house, I should not just go buy a building by myself. I need to talk to my partner. I need to talk to a professional to make sure that I do understand the liabilities, the risks that I'm taking. So this is something that we really recommend. Has anybody ever done this in your personal, family, or business life? Has anybody ever done this? Or has anyone ever seen having a problem with their partners who cannot control their spending? Okay, Donna Marie says no. Others. This is actually a very big challenge here in the US. There are many couples that one person, let's say the husband, is responsible for bringing the money and monitoring and then the wife, or vice versa, it really doesn't matter. There was one case, it was a few years ago, that one of the couples had spent $50,000 on credit cards, and then the other side had no idea because they were not looking at each other's finances. They didn't have that control, checks and balance system in place. So putting everything into a spreadsheet and having both couples look at it. And then also at certain times, even getting your children engaged in it. So they begin to develop this habit. It's very important. And it really helps a lot, having this limit and then also looking at it together. So our annual income, our budget sheet and asset sheet, one person in the family or in the business who's savvy in finances, who's particularly if they are tech savvy, because these days you can do this in an app, in a spreadsheet. So one person needs to be responsible for keeping track of this information every month, not every 2 months, not every 3 months. It needs to be done every month. But then both sides, whether it's a couple, whether it's a business partnership, they have to look at it together, because often I may see things that my wife didn't see, or vice versa. So this is an exercise, this is a pattern that we really recommend everyone creating in their personal life that would really help. So Michelle, I'm going to ask you, you're married, correct? Okay. Who monitors finances in your family?
I'm the one.
Okay, all right. And does your husband do you look at it together from time to time to see how your finances is going?
Actually, every month I will prepare the total expenses that we incurred during the month, and he will take a look on that. Yes.
Okay, very perfect. Have you engaged your children? How old are your children?
My eldest one now is college, so
okay.
she also have her own expenses recording by her own.
Okay.
Then my youngest one, she's still at secondary, so she have no extra income other than the allowance that we given. So every time when she needs something extra from the allowance, she will list out what she want to buy and ask for the date. Okay. So he want to know that what are the things he want to buy and what is the purpose before he giving her the money. Yeah.
Okay. But it's done a great job of your college child who's already has her own way of keeping track of.
Yes.
Afro, what about you?
So normally I'm the one who keep the datas. So like we have two separate budgets. My wife is normally in charge of anything about like grocery at home and anything else. So, and me, I'll be in charge of anything else that's, because we have three kids, children, and they're still young. And my wife normally stays at home and take care about them and their family in general. So I'm the one who go out and generate like the cash to use from the family. So anything related to home and what, so she has her budget, review it, and so we allocate money according to that. And I have my budget if I need some expenses that we need like to go out and what, so I will do that. So then we bring all this budget together and so like approve, this is what you're going to do, or we're going to reduce this. So that's how we do. So then we have a 6 years old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So we started like you see kids in nowadays, okay, we have all these digits, they see the cartoons, they see I want this dress and what. So now we've started doing something that's we at home we don't call it an allowance.
Mm-hmm.
But if maybe she says I need a bicycle or I need a dress, so we'll start giving her cash, and we have a piggy box. She normally take the cash we give her to put that in the piggy box. So to just tell her once you have enough money, so we're going to buy the dress. So of course sometimes she doesn't have enough and she don't know about the money now,
Mm-hmm.
but we can increase to top up to buy the dress, but at least she know that she's the one who bought the dress. And once we want to buy it, so we go to the market, she have her cash and she go and pay. We're not the one who's paying. Like she'll have her cash and pay. So that's what we're trying to do, so that like maybe we teach her patience about money. We teach her that whatever you want, you don't get it immediately. So these are the small things that we do at home.
Very good. This is perfect. I'm so glad you shared. This is a great way, especially now, again, because our children are being born with a device in their hand. They are being exposed to material stuff. It's not like they would get a new clothes or see a new clothes or toys once or maybe twice a year for New Year or for maybe their birthdays. They're constantly seeing this stuff. So this is a very good example. And they begin, it's not about them becoming materialized or greedy. It's about learning them. A few other examples that I usually like to share with everyone is that we teach our children how to brush their teeth as soon as they have their first tooth. We don't wait until they have all the teeth. So that's what they learn. We teach our children to pray from very young age. It's not like we are brainwashing them. Once they grow older, they make their own decisions, whether they want to be a spiritual person, continue to pray or not. That's totally up to them. But these are the habits that needs to be developed from a very young age. So Afro, thank you so much. We hope that everybody else is doing the same thing as well. Let's take a quick 5-minute break and then we will come back and continue. See you guys shortly. 5 minutes. All right, everyone. So let's continue our discussion. The next topic that we're going to present is about responsibility. So I'm going to share my screen. There we go. And move my stuff around. Let's get me organized here. Okay. So the treasure of responsibility is one of the treasures that really has a lot to do with our finances, whether we are a child, whether we are a youth or an adult. So we have several activities in here. The first one is a table. As you can see, we are using a lot of charts or journals to keep track of our various activities in life, our finances, our time management, and this is for our responsibilities. And this is something that we can do over time. It's not a one time. And also, as you're seeing in your worksheet and your activities, some activities are like one time, and then but there are some that can be used over and over again, like our time management sheet. This one is very helpful for our responsibilities, either in the household or in our work environment, for our school environment. So knowing who is responsible for what. And again, if you look at it from the last hour, when we talk about our financial responsibilities, something that we have seen often between especially couples is that one person thinks that, oh, the other one is taking care of so-and-so, as Afro was saying, that they have it split between him and his wife. His wife takes care of some of the expenses and he does some of the expenses. So as long as everybody's on the same page, everybody is okay. But then often people, when they don't have this written down, it gets to a point that, oh, I thought you were doing that. Oh, I thought you were paying that bill. And that's where we get into trouble when things are paid late. Or when we have children, we know that everybody has to have a responsibility. So I'm going to put in, and this is a question that we ask everyone. There are 2 times in our lives that we don't have any responsibility. Absolutely nothing. We don't have to worry about anything. So what are the 2 times? What are times when we are not responsible? When we are not responsible for anything. So let's see what everybody says. There are 2 periods of our lives that we have absolutely, we don't have to worry about anything. Rest of it, it's like we have to. Doesn't matter if we're a child, whether we are an adult. So I'm going to put some of the responsibilities around the home. Dishes needs to be washed. Let's see. Clothes needs to be washed. Let's see. What else we got? Michelle, what responsibilities do you have around your house, especially with your children?
Housekeeping, like sweeping, mopping the floor, yeah.
Yeah, so sweep the house, yep, exactly. Washing dishes, let's see, rubbish or trash, as we call it here. And somebody has to take that stuff out. They don't just walk out themselves, right? So these are the things that often families, I've seen many families, they have a little chart in the kitchen on the refrigerator that says, you do this responsibility on this day. So let's say rubbish is my, trash is my responsibility, the one that's outside. So the way our system works is that we take our rubbish and put it into the big bins. And then once a week, the truck comes on Tuesdays. So this is my responsibility. So I'm going to put an X in there that on Tuesday mornings, and often I do it actually because sometimes it comes early. I do it Monday night. So that's my responsibility. So you see, it works the same way. Dishes, I'm hoping that other members of the family help, but often I find myself washing the dishes. So let's say if I'm supposed to be doing the dishes every other day, it's like, this is my schedule. And then did I do them or not? I do it, yes. Like I said, I've been washing a lot of dishes. So sometimes I get stuck washing the dishes more than what I should be doing. So as you can see, this is really helpful, particularly for children, to know their responsibilities, to know that being part of a household, being part of a society, being part of a partnership in work, we all have to take responsibility in work. So nobody has any idea what are the 2 times in our lives that we don't have any responsibility? I don't see any responses.
Your baby.
Hazel, yes, Hazel, go ahead.
When you're a baby.
And?
When you're a baby.
Okay, so that's 1 time. There are 2 times.
When you're dead.
No, before you die. So when we're in babies and we're diaper, and then sometimes when we go back into diapers again, when we're old. When we're really old, nobody expects us to do anything. We just kind of sit around, especially if the person has gotten really old, Alzheimer's, or is incapable of physically doing things, nobody expects us to do anything. But between those times, really, we all have responsibilities. And this is something that children and youth often don't realize. They think that if we ask them to do things, oh, it's because adults don't want to do it. And it's an eye-opening for them to learn that no, still, even as adults, we have to do things. I had a great story. There was one, I think she was in grade 7. Her name was Olivia. When we were doing this, she said, I have no responsibility around the house. And when we asked who cooks, who washes dishes, there were people, mom, dad, brother, sister. And I asked Olivia, are you going to live with your family for the rest of your life? She said, no. And I said, okay, so when you go, you don't know how to do any of these. Who's going to do all of this stuff? And she said, my maid and butler. And I said, okay, who is going to pay for your maid and butler? And I said, oh, this is going to be during college? She said, yeah, when I go to university, I'm going to have a maid and butler. I said, who's paying for it? She said, my aunt and uncle. And I said, have you talked to your aunt and uncle if they're paying for it? She said, no. I said, all right, here's your homework. Please go ahead and talk to them. And if they say yes, please have them write it on a piece of paper so they don't deny it later on. And then come back and present it to class. So the following week when she came back, her head was down. I asked Olivia, did you talk to your aunt and uncle? Yes. Are they going to pay for your maid and butler? No. What are you going to do? I started washing dishes last night. For a grade 7, she's probably like 12 years old, to realize that she needs to begin to learn this stuff at a young age so she can take care of it. And we've seen many times parents don't give responsibility to their children because of the difficulties that they went through growing up. But it's very important that we don't, creating an easy life for our children is great, but then not spoiling them is very important too. All right. So I'm going to jump into this, and then we can go into our breakout sessions. So we have our, and this is the other one that we do. We often don't realize the extra elements that come when we take new responsibilities. So for example, if we rent an apartment, if somebody would like to open the microphone and tell us what are the responsibilities that we have when we rent an apartment. Can somebody, Michelle, do you live in an apartment or in a house?
I live in a house.
You live in a house? Okay, so but you probably lived in an apartment before, right? You've lived in an apartment before?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay, all right. Hazel, you probably lived in an apartment, right?
Yes, years ago. Yes.
Okay, okay, so we pay rent. What are some of the other responsibilities that we have when we live in an apartment? What are other things we pay for? Keep it clean. That's what Alex says, okay.
Yeah, the only thing, you have to pay your rent on time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. And who takes care of, let's say, repairs and other things?
You just call someone that's responsible for that unit, and they're supposed to come in and take care of it. You just call the owner. Exactly.
So the responsibility of maintaining anything breaks down in the apartment, at least this is how it is in US. When something breaks down, you live in an apartment, you just call the landlord. Say this is broken, and it is their responsibility to come and fix it. By law, they have to come and fix it immediately. So the tenant pays rent and maybe some of the utilities, let's say gas, water is usually, go ahead, Samuel, what else is there?
Water.
Water, yes, water, exactly. Water, electricity. So these are the ones that we have to pay. Now, let's say if you own a home, what is it, the same responsibilities or the homeowner has more responsibilities?
More responsibilities.
It's definitely more responsibilities. So we have to pay, let's say if you have a mortgage, We still have to pay gas, electricity, water, but now we also have to pay for the maintenance. Yes. If we have a yard, it needs maintenance. The yard needs maintenance. If we have to pay, some of the other responses, we have to pay insurance. We definitely have to pay for insurance here. If you live in an apartment, the owner is responsible for the insurance. We have to pay tax. That's another thing that we have to pay. And again, when we rent an apartment, the landlord is responsible for it. So you see that it's everyone's dream to own a house, but then often we don't recognize what it means. And in a life of a child, let's say many children, they would like to have a pet, a dog, a fish, a cat or something, and they don't necessarily recognize the different elements. So it is very helpful that when we are thinking of increasing our responsibilities, taking on a real responsibility of what are the different elements that we need to bring into the picture. So we really have to think about that. Any question so far, you can put it in the chat or you can open your microphone about creating a list of chores. Again, whether it's for our family environment, for our school environment, for our business environment, so everybody understands who is responsible for who. And then when we are ready to take on additional responsibilities, bigger responsibilities, knowing the elements and being prepared for it. Okay. The last item that we're going to be talking about before we go to our breakout rooms is our responsibilities to others. So what do you think? Should we feel responsible for others in our community or even around the world? And what are some of the challenges and things that we see that we can help improve on? Whether it's something that doesn't exist, we need to create, or something that we see in our neighborhood that needs some attention to become better. Anyone has any example? Something that we can improve in our communities where we live, a challenge that we see. I'm going to start with one. Afro, go ahead.
I think like from my community, these things of like financial literacy, we don't have like any idea. So I think it's something that I intend to try to change, like from my neighborhood and like from my community, either friends or families.
Okay, all right. Alex says loneliness and depression. Okay, any other thoughts? Anybody else can think of what elements of your community you can take it, and it doesn't have to be something big. It can be something really small. Samuel, go ahead.
Okay, mine too is about financial education. My people are having this problem of poverty mindset. It's not actually that we don't have money. Money comes, but how we appropriate it. And mostly the problem is coming from how our educational system is religion and the society. And so religion doesn't push people to do things in the right way. They come up with concepts that get people to, let's say, we think money is evil and all that. And so it's something that I've started over a year ago, financial education. Every morning on my social media platforms, church groups, and other stuff, I try to read and share, And so this is what I'm trying to do to help my community and society as a whole to also come up.
Okay, very good. And I did see your. I haven't seen the Facebook thing yet, but and I'm hoping that this program, because you saw we started with the spiritual aspects of finances. Hopefully I'll see what you posted in there. So there are a lot of challenges in our society that we can definitely address, definitely think about. And the way we do that, so if we go back and look, and we'll get into our breakout rooms, is that let's go back. I'm gonna pull, all right, into our table, into patience. So if we look, we set this thing that throughout our life, we are gaining different knowledge and work and everything, and we are working toward becoming financially independent, active and passive income, so we can enjoy our life. But then part of our life has to be spent on helping others. So it's not just about, oh, well, I want to be financially independent so I can travel the world. Well, that's a great goal. There's nothing with traveling. We love to travel. Actually, I cannot. So we get a chance to travel to Africa, to Malaysia, to meet everyone in person. That is my highest goal and desires. You cannot believe, because we are working with so many people in different countries and everywhere, even down to Trinidad, where Donna Marie is. That's south of here, US. I would love to come and see everyone, because this education that we are providing, we are learning, but then we also have to begin to sacrifice some of our time, so we are not spending on social media, so we can enrich the life of others. That is what we really need to do, which is one of the goals. So as Afro was asking, it's like when we did our initial goals, and like we had some thoughts before we started this program. Hopefully this program is enhancing what you had in mind in life. And then when we combine that with the sacred writings that we read and the educational aspects that we're going to continue on doing, I'm going to wait until this loads up. But one that we haven't read is like when we become financially independent, especially through having passive income, how are we going to use our free time when life necessities are provided through different means? So we are hoping that this is what we do. I love this quote. Michelle, can you read number 20, please?
Number 20. Beseech ye the one true God to grant that ye may taste the savor of such deeds as are performed in his path, and partake of the sweetness of such humility and submissiveness as are shown for his sake. Forget your own self and turn your eyes toward your neighbor. Bend your energy to whatever may foster the education of man. Nothing is or can ever be hidden from God. If ye follow in his way, his incalculable and imperishable blessing will be showered upon you.
Thank you so much. So, and this is something that we have personally, my wife and I have personally experienced, especially since we began to do this program 15 years ago. We never thought that we would be reaching out to so many friends around the world, so many passionate friends around the world. And this is what really amazes me, that most people that participate in our program, their goal is not just to use this program for their personal and family life, but also to begin to teach financial education to others. It's just amazing. And we all know, for those that have been doing financial education, I think everybody knows that it is not something that we can create as a way of supporting our lives. It does not, we can charge a little bit for the program, but what we have seen, at least here in the US, is that most people do not want to pay for a program like this. We've been doing the program at schools at no cost. We secure sponsorship and then go to schools and then present the program at no cost to children. And we offer it to adults too. But it takes a lot of passion and compassion to bring this education to our communities. So I just wanted to kind of go back And then now this is just the beginning of thinking about what challenges exist in our community. So let's go into our breakout rooms. And then the questions are going to be what challenges exist in your individual community. And it will be amazing because what we will see is that the challenges are, while they're different around the world, there are a lot of them that are common. And then what solutions do you have in mind? And how can we collaborate together, even though that each one of us is living in a different country, but there are many other people that we can engage into this process. So I'm gonna stop sharing and start our breakout rooms. And we'll do the breakout for 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back. I think there are a small group of us that in 10 minutes should be good. Okay, Michelle, you're on one, and I'll go into a meeting too. All right?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on a second, because I need to recreate, because some people were not in there. Okay, 1 second, please. All right, so you're there. Oh, okay. I'm going to assign you to room 1, and then I'll go into room. Okay, we're waiting for everyone to come back. Make sure everybody left. Okay, seems like everybody's back. Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, so like previously what upfront have been shared is the financial literacy. So I think Yang at this moment at Vietnam also, what I mean, she is doing the financial literacy in Vietnam. And Eunice also talking about the same because of the poverty. So she want to educate people on more on the financial planning and literacy in her community. So at this moment, Afron is using, he as a blogger and write something to share with the community at this moment. Okay, and Yang, I think she already have the Facebook, and I did follow her Facebook, and she is writing or whatever information that she have learned in here in the Facebook group. And I feel wonderful about it because the Facebook group has actually been established for 4 months, and now she have 2,000 followers with her. So hopefully this group can grow bigger, and she might thinking that to have a class on the financial literacy for next year. So as Eunice, she mentioned that she wish to have more knowledge, then she can train the people to overcome the poverty. Yep. This is a sharing from my side.
Okay, all right, very cool. So from our group, there was one of the thoughts was that there is not enough pension. People are not thinking about their future, their retirement, so they need to be educated on preparing for the future. And that is going to be the topic of conversation next week, actually. Next week, we'll get into generosity, which is not only for one's personal life, but for others. And that's how we prepare for retirement in the future. Donna Marie from Trinidad and also Carla from US shared about the challenges with recycling. So these challenges are not just about our financial, it's about any element in the community. So they talked about Recycling, Donna Marie said that in her area, she lives in Trinidad, which is South America, that they don't have a good recycling system. They have a bin, but when they take the recycling, it's full, it's not working. And the idea, her son, actually, this was shared in their school, and he brought it home. And Donna Marie began to talk to one of the neighbors, one of the friends, and they began to work on it, and they will approach the government. And this is exactly what we want to continue to talk about. And the last day of our program will be concentrating on how do we start these projects. First, we identify them, and then there are certain elements that we can take to begin this. Let's see, Sandy shared that in South Africa, there's a huge lack of internet data or internet access, particularly for children during this COVID, that because their schools are closed, now they are being deprived of the education that they can receive. And that is it's a big challenge. It's not something that individuals can necessarily create data, but then there are, this really is up to foundations or corporations or governments, because it does take some infrastructure. And he said that for now, the government, I guess, think is providing some hotspots to do. So as you see, the whole point of this is begin to think about challenges in our community. One of the main ones that I have seen from previous series is participants have voiced concern about our youth not having a direction in life. They're just kind of like playing on their phones, doing on social media. Here in US, unfortunately, we have a lot of them that get involved with drugs and gang and things of that nature. And that is something that at least our government agencies have tried to really work hard to alleviate that problem, but they have not been successful. There has been some success, but not a lot. But that is something that within the neighborhoods can definitely happen. And we will share some ideas again on the last day to engage our youth in meaningful conversations about challenges in the society, what's happening, helping them realize that even at their young age, even as a child or as a youth, they can play a role in not only finances, financial aspects of life, but elevating our communities. So that can definitely be done. All right, so this was a great conversation. We'll continue to work on it. Hopefully everyone is part of your assignments. You'll continue to list out more challenges and solutions in your community. We will take the last 10 minutes of the program on the next lesson plan. They kind of go hand in hand together. I'm going to share my screen, which is this one. So in our program, we also have a lesson on accountability. In the chat, as soon as I get my chat up, somewhere around here. And see, what are your thoughts? What is the difference between, so the question is, what is the difference between responsibility, being responsible and being accountable? If anybody has any thoughts. What does it mean to be responsible, or what's the difference between being responsible and being accountable? Because they're very similar. Michelle is thinking hard. I can see the wheels turning in your head. So while everyone is thinking and maybe coming up with an answer, this is a follow-up to responsibility. And especially when we do this with our students in classrooms, we haven't listed out, these are the existing community essentials. So we get them to think about, where do we get all of these elements? Like, where do we get our nutrition from? A supermarket. And then are there enough supermarkets or different types of supermarket around that provide us healthy options or houses? So kind of think about it. And it gets very specific, like we ask them for supermarkets to name the supermarkets that exist that they have access to. Are there enough rental houses? One of the biggest challenges we are seeing in our area is people that cannot afford to have a house and they live on the street. It is very, the area that we're in, San Diego, is very expensive. It's not the most expensive, but it is very expensive in US. And I was just gonna say, okay, and like same place that Carla is living. She lives about 45 minutes from our area in Los Angeles area. These are some of the expensive areas, and with the money, with the minimum wage that we earn here, it's fairly difficult to even afford. For a lot of people, it's very difficult to afford, and that's why we see a lot of times that people end up living on the streets. Are there enough shops where we can buy clothes and everything else? Is there enough healthcare available? Mental houses of worship, churches, synagogues, mosques. Is there enough areas? So we kind of list these and to see what is there and what's missing in our community. And then we come down here and write down what are some of the elements that are missing in our communities. So I'm going to stop here. That nobody said what's the difference between accountable and responsible. Nobody has any idea? You can unmute yourself if you have some idea. Anybody wants to take a...
Can I try?
Yes, definitely. Go ahead.
Being responsible, responsibility can be shared. You can just tell someone to do something, but being accountable, you need to stand up and face the action. You have to be accountable of anything you're doing. So yeah.
Okay, so that's one definition. All right, other thoughts? Anybody has any thought about what does it mean to be responsible or accountable? The difference. And I can read. So there is the definition here. Samuel, go ahead. Do you want to say something?
Okay, I'm responsible for making sure that there is money at home for house chores, for school fees, and the likes. And I'm accountable to, let's say, my family on the fact that we decided to save this amount on that. And I am in charge of making sure that maybe we say we are going to save this amount to buy a house. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the year, I have to open up to them. This is the decision we took. This is how much we've gotten. This is how we used it. I allow them to ask me questions and I open up, be fair enough to explain it to them. So that is my understanding.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, responsible is like a person that takes on a responsibility. So here, let's say I am responsible to take the rubbish out on Monday night. This is what the responsibility that was given to me when we sat together as a family. I said, all right, I'm going to do this. Now the rest of the family is counting on me to do this on my own without having the need to remind me. So Monday night, my wife or the children, they don't have to remind me, Dad, make sure you take the recycle out or take the rubbish out. And when I develop that habit of doing that, so then they don't have to remind me, that's when I become an accountable person. Or as SK said, it's the same thing. They set a family goal and they are counting on him to keep track of the money, because it's very difficult if everyone is going to keep track of money on regular basis to make sure that they have saved up or done everything that's needed to purchase that home. And then SK could not come a year later. Well, I'm sorry, I did not count everything. I did not make sure everything, so we cannot buy the house. And he will keep everyone informed if things needs to be changed. It's the same thing in a business environment. If there are partners that are working together, everybody has a different responsibility, but then also they are hoping that everyone takes their responsibility very seriously and does not need any supervision or without minimal supervision. That is when we become accountable. So these two, responsibility and accountability, are actually bases of our borrowing system, which we're going to be talking about later. I think it's one of the sessions in the future. We will talk more about borrowing, if I'm not mistaken, of what do we borrow for? What's the advancement that we're going to, what is a good borrowing, what's not? We talked about it a little bit today, but then we'll be talking more about it. But before we can get to the point of being a good borrower, we need to become responsible and accountable. This is something that we definitely have to do. So keep that in mind, and then we'll come back to it. There was one other element that I forgot to mention, something that can help us, especially with, I'm going to go back with our moderation, help us keep track of our time. So I'm going to put the question in the chat, if I can use my microphone. Who uses the calendar app in their phone? Do you guys use the calendar app in your phone? I know we forced you to use that calendar app. I'm going to start sharing. Okay, so Alex says yes, Michelle says yes. This is something that is really helpful to all of us. Actually, I will pull up the calendar. So these days, most people have a Google account, and this is something that you have access to, whether on the internet or you do it on your phone. Donna Marie says yes, however, but not for everything. Hatem says sometimes. I found this to be very helpful, using the calendar for not exactly for everything, but then a lot of things that is ongoing. So this is not my personal calendar. This is for Mind Treasures class. But as you can see, this has the class at our time, Mondays, 6:30 to 8:30 a.m. And what this allows, this calendar, one of the beauties of this is that when I send this to everyone around the world, the calendar app automatically puts it in the correct time zone. So I don't have to tell people, oh, make sure that you are available and attending on this time based on your local time. It's already there. It's extremely helpful to use this, especially for societies that are not accustomed to being on time, which is a lot of societies around the world. We just take things, we come a little late, we come a little, not that often early, but our finances and majority of our tasks in life, it's great to use this and then put it in there in our calendar. The other thing that it does, so if you remember, if I open up this, this one, I can put in as much information as I need. So if I had just sent you, if I had just emailed you the link for our Zoom meeting, every week I would have probably received a lot of messages through WhatsApp. Can you send me the link again? But by doing this, now you have it. You don't even have to look through your email. You know that on Mondays, based on your time zone, we're going to get together and the link is there. So it's very helpful to have this. SK says yes, but I use Google Sheets for daily activities, and that's fine too. As long as we are using something, there are a lot of different apps. It doesn't have to be necessarily Google Calendar. Google Calendar is particularly good for when we are meeting with other people. Often I get a message from someone that let's meet on this time, and it's like, please send me a calendar invite, because it gets on my calendar, it's on their calendar, and everybody else that's attending too. It's really helped organize our activities. So I really recommend, again, not for tasks, but for like when you're meeting with other people or you're doing things with your family, even within our household. Every time there is, we are planning on doing something that involves the entire family, we put it in our calendar, and we can even share our calendars together. So within our family, with my wife and with our two boys, we all have access to each other's calendars. So if we want to plan something, we don't have to ask them. We can look online and see, oh, dad is busy on this day, so let's not plan that, or he's doing something like that, and what's happening. It's extremely helpful to do this. And even when people ask me, it's like, are you available? When are you available for a meeting? I don't have to give them time slots. The calendar has an option that you can send your calendar, share your calendar with someone else without the details. They will just see that, oh, this person is available on these days or on these time slots, or they're busy on this time slot. So really recommend using the calendar if you haven't already done so. All right, I'm going to stop here because we are at the end of our today's session. are there any questions or comments? Michelle, any comments before we end?
No, from my side.
All right. So the recording will be available in a couple of hours when it's done processing. Assignments, again, I cannot overemphasize the importance of assignments. And news from Kenya, I was having a chat with her earlier today, and she really liked what we're doing, how this is changing her life. This is how changing what's happening to her. Samuel, go ahead.
Okay, I've learned two things to start doing from today's lesson. I was thinking about how to get my son to start taking up an activity that can earn him money.
SK, you froze. Did we lose him? Sounds like he went frozen. Okay, well, you can share that in the, if there are any comments or something, you can also share it in the WhatsApp group. So thank you so much, everyone.